один эфир.
Друзья, добрый день.
Afternoon, dear friends.
Насколько я пойму, в Уфе уже 6
Already,
вечера,
as
да?
far as I can understand, it's 6
У вас
p.m.
уже
in
добрый
Ufa.
вечер. Я
So,
рад
good
всех
evening.
приветствовать
I'm very glad to greet
на форуме
everyone
«Бизнес-успех»
on our forum,
и участников,
Business
и
Success, Business
организаторов.
Успех, and all the
И
participants
меня
and the
попросили провести
organizers. I was asked
небольшую
to
презентацию
show a short
касательно
presentation concerning
истории нашей компании,
the
истории
history of our
развития,
company and its development,
история, можно так сказать, выживания во время кризиса,
the history,
прохождения разных
the
кризисов. И
story of survival during the
мне будет очень
crisis,
интересно с вами
tell you different
поделиться
stories
этой
about that, and
информацией,
that would be
а
really
потом
interesting to
я
share
буду готов
that
ответить
information
на
with
вопросы.
you, and later
Мы
I will be ready
понимаем,
to
что все
answer
мы
the questions.
живем
I
в очень непростое
understand
время,
that now we're living
когда
in a very
накладывается
difficult
несколько
time when
негативных факторов, да,
several
это и
negative moments,
ковид,
factors
да, это
overlap
и
together. That's
кризис, который
COVID-19 and the
поразил многие
crisis,
экономики ввиду вот этой болезни. Это и, в
in
принципе,
economical
разная
crisis because of that
макроэкономическая
disease,
ситуация,
and
которая
different
по всему миру,
macroeconomical
она по-разному
situation
очень
throughout
реагирует, но
across the whole
есть
world.
особенно
And
чувствительность к этому определенных отраслей. Кстати,
some branches are extremely sensitive to this situation,
одна из самых пострадавших. Тем не
and
менее, компания
there are
тем
some
не менее, она
really strongly suffered
выстраивает новые стратегии,
branches, and
потому
now
что умение
we're trying to build new strategies because
адаптироваться к кризисам, да,
being
должно
able
быть, мне
to
кажется, одной из
adapt to that critical
ключевых
situation is
черт, да,
a
предпринимателя.
key trait of each
Умение
entrepreneur.
вытерпеть, да, как есть такая хорошая слово, говорят, после терпения начинается выносливость. Да, вот
So
такую
after
возможность и
patience,
навыки
stamina,
все-таки переживать
hardness
эти сложные
starts,
времена,
and having those
переносить
skills
эти
to
времена и
overcome those
видоизменять
times
свою модель,
and
видоизменять свои отношения
alter your
в
personal
цепочке
attitude,
создания ценности, да,
and the
вашей
model of
компании.
working in the companies, etc., is the
Если
key.
организаторы позволят, да, я поделюсь
So
экраном
if
и
the
начну
organizers
показывать презентацию.
allow me to show my presentation, to share my screen and show my presentation, I would happily do that.
Друзья, правильно я понимаю, видно моя презентация?
So can you see my presentation? Sure.
Итак, развитие компании через трансформацию бизнеса.
So we started our company with the business, and my presentation is really practical, and it is based on the experience of our fashion house, which is about 25 years old. So the issues for different entrepreneurs who have that during concluding something and making some other plans is how to calculate, consider our future, and we believe that our successful future depends only on the leaders of the company and the team gathered for its mission and goals. And it is important to understand that we live in not ideal surroundings, and building all our goals depends on the way that our understanding then the surroundings are changing, and it's real. So the environment is really agile, and we always should be vigilant, and we should be vigilant and be able to influence all the marketing opportunities, and the way of solving the problems will depend on our opportunities. So the survival of the company is not the problem of Russia, especially during COVID, we read some reports because it's really essential to keep small-scale and medium-scale business, and they support. So on this slide, you can see the information for 2015 of the research, how everything was developing in European countries, and the statistics exist, how the company can survive. And we can see that during the whole year, the figures are about 80%. And every second company out of 10 gets broke in the first year. If we look at the period of 3 years, we can see that it's about 50% for several countries. For Portugal, it's about 40%, or in, for example, Belgium or Sweden, that's about 30%. Or it's about 70% of the level of survival, and companies invest some money, attract staff, but very soon they shut their companies down, or maybe they get new employees. So, and soon about 40% of companies, 4 out of 10 companies can survive up to 5 years, and it happens in such countries where there is enough support and market is stable. And market is stable as well. So let's look at the huge companies, what happens with them on the market. So it's not that easy. In 5 years, about 40% of companies which are enlisted in the Fortune 500, that's a list of companies which exist in the world. So about 40% of those companies can have some threat for their survival, and they will stop their existence because there will be some overlapping and swallowing by other countries. About 15 years ago, I attended one of the workshops, and we were told that within 20 years there would be only about 5 companies manufacturing vehicles, cars, and so nowadays there are only about 5 or 6 global companies that have overlapped and have created some conglomerates, like American or Japanese brands, and they buy their competitors, their smaller rivals. And we can see those conglomerates that some companies are run by the bigger companies. And so, for example, the Nissan company was run by a Renault company, or Chrysler company overlapped with another company, and they had a mutual business. So also we can speak about some examples when, for example, Reebok and Adidas worked together, and well, there were 2 brands, but actually they were like only one, Adidas.
Чтобы быть конкурентоспособным, чтобы не умирать медленно, нам надо двигаться очень быстро.
So we need to act faster, every week, every month, and we always should develop our company, even in this situation of instability. At the most difficult time is when you've got to make some decisions, but a person doesn't have additional sufficient amount of data, and it is better not to put off making those decisions, because the company might just go down and can't resist all the changes that are happening. Let's speak about good news. Among good news, I would like to share with you with this map of development opportunities for the company, and every company has got some opportunities. So here on this map you can see your key competence that you are able to implement for your customers. Usually, as a rule, those customers who come to you, they need only part of your services and opportunities, and the other half of their demands is your company is unable to implement, and so that is going to be covered with the clients that you've got nowadays. And the column where your abilities and demands coincide is that what you usually do. And yeah, you would be able to do something else, but actually your clients need it, and some of your competence need the development. So to develop your company, you've got several ways. The first one is to develop your competence, and you start understanding that you've got several other demands, and you start developing your competence. I'll give you an example. This company sells some gas, oil, and it tries to sell different brands, oil brands. Some drivers need one type of oil, some the other, with high figures of octa number, and all the clients, some clients want to drink some coffee or make some purchases, and usually drivers try to put some more gas in the morning or in the evening, and while waiting they could grab a sandwich or buy a cup of coffee, and in those columns we can see in those gas stations, small supermarkets are open, and that helps to suffice some demands of the clients. So this shows how the company should develop, in which direction. The second option is when you understand how to use your opportunities and the clients on your market who you actually use. But actually, for example, if you work in Ufa and you work with the clients from Ufa, but you also have a neighboring city, Kazan, and you can actually work with those customers as well, because you can open your company, your business somewhere else in different cities, and that's how you develop your business. And another option, one more option, which is used quite rarely, but it works, is an outburst breakthrough. So you can see here you've got a good business model and the company is developing, but sometimes the company needs some new solutions. So I would give you an example that business Успех company, they can develop with some conferences. They developed in some conferences, offline conferences, with a lot of guests and participants, and they had offline enrichment and building new bridges, connections, and all the participants of those conferences could get that opportunity. But nowadays, to develop new business, some innovations are needed. Companies should go online and increase the amount of their competence. For example, the organization where I work, the organization holds some new interactive events and where everything can be discussed online and some solutions are drawn there. So the example of the company which broke through is the company which decided to send some tourists to space, and they started doing some new business or another. So that company decided to not only to build the vehicles, but also to send people to space. And that issue would be much more difficult because they need to think how to send people to the space station and how to get them back.
Let's take a look at the history of our company, how it was evolving and changing. You may see that in different years it has went through several stages of transformation and through several crises. I purposefully marked with different colors those external crises, which we had, in my opinion, the most severe ones. And many crises when we had to transform, to change our business model and logic of business, because we were understanding that if there is no crisis, but our financial indexes and numbers, they are not good enough. They are not good looking in relation to the targets which the company was setting, or some business opportunities, market opportunities. They were emerging, some changes in the market, not necessarily crises, but new market opportunities. And we accordingly, we were looking at it as a challenge, and we were modifying our company. In this slide, it is all given in detail how in 1993, when the company was established, it was a distributor of several brands. The first transformation which we decided to have, that we will not act as representatives of several brands, but we decided to pick one brand to distribute. And we began to actively develop it. In 1998, during the crisis, the model wasn't working, and many companies had financial challenges, and they were just closing down. And in order to develop our company, we had to explore new business areas. Then, in order to develop the company, we understood that it is hard to work as distributors and retailers, because we couldn't influence the product line, we couldn't satisfy the demand of our clients, and we decided that we need to buy the brand, and that we need to establish ourselves a completely vertically integrated company, starting from design up to the marketing and sales. Starting from 2003, we bought out the shares from the founder, a Polish company, and we began developing the company ourselves. In 2012, we opened an outlet on the basis of our own company, and we became unique. These were the years when this trend for cheap for cheap services. We had new audience of clients, and it was quite comfortable to make research and make purchases in the internet. And we had to expand, scale up the company and our competences, and to build a strong team of internet sales. In 2017, we held another transformation, and we began opening tailors' houses where you could have your clothes knit based on your own parameters. And we opened also in Kazan, in Ufa, and this allowed us to expand our line of goods which are ready to wear, so to say, prêt-à-porter collection. That's what we began to do. But we can also do individual tailoring of suits, because people may have different preferences, both in terms of figure and in terms of fashion. So we were addressing those needs through this kind of a model. 2020, this COVID brought us to a stage when we were to actively develop our digital infrastructure. We are already present in marketplaces, in some online channels of sales. We actively develop our internet store, and in future we are planning to have the new offer, Henderson, the system of loyalty, which would help us to develop our company further. What Henderson is now, it's a federal network which encompasses various regions from Kaliningrad to Vladivostok, Khabarovsk, from Murmansk to Petygorsk. This year we're opening the new outlet, the southernmost outlet of our network, of our chain. And having this chain, which is managed by the company itself, self-managed, there has been no analogs of this kind in Russia. It's a company which has such a large chain and competences. And the transformation which I've mentioned, it allows us to, in the situation when the traffic is not growing, in the past 3 years, the numbers, we are increasing the number of outlets, and with the falling traffic, we understand why, and which is
the increase in 50%. Most amount of those people go back to the shop, but they also order online and get the delivery during peak points or delivery man. And so we observe the big data that we receive on a daily basis and annually, and we understand the age and some likings of our customers, what color they like, etc. And every season, we've got 4 seasons: winter, spring, summer, and autumn. And we consider all those changes that we can see, we observe in our customers' behavior. And so we reflect that on our new collection. So about 1.5 thousand people work in our company, and it covers about 60 different cities, and 160 shops exist nowadays. So the business transformation is not a goal, but the necessity of constant development of the company, because if going back to the big slide I'm going to stop on, the whole history of our company tells us that the crisis happen crisis happened, and let's be honest, it's been 2008 years since 10 years has passed since the last crisis in 2008, and 2020 is also a very critical year because of COVID-19, and our customers have suffered a lot. And as you can see, so if you wouldn't exclude that critical situation that happens about every 6 or 10 years, because each period something bad happens, and it's going to change, and the perspectives of our life is going to be short. So there is an adaptation from the crisis, going out from the crisis, getting the crisis again, and it's going to accelerate more and more. That's what we predict nowadays. And if the company doesn't have, if companies don't have any sufficient competence, they won't be able to resist those changes, and your competence are going to be really essential for the development of your company. Honestly, I heard that I can talk to you for about 1 hour or an hour and a half, so I would love to stop my presentation here, because I've covered the whole history of the company quite briefly, and I've told you how we came through all the stages, and now I'm ready to answer the questions of the audience, and I would try to be useful for you and your business. So, question to the administrator: if you've got any questions from the audience, I'm ready to answer them. Evgeny? How are we going to moderate this process? Karina Cortez is going to talk now. She is connected now. Hello, Karina. Nice to see you. What was the question? I didn't hear. Sorry. So, Karina, I finished my presentation. I'm not a professional speaker, in comparison with other people who usually show a lot of different slides, etc. I'm ready to answer the questions from the audience who can hear us right now, and we also have a chat, and we can look at that and choose interesting questions from that chat, and I'm happily ready to answer them. So I suggest you to stay connected, and also our moderator can see you, and we've got the questions from the audience.
So please stay connected, stay tuned, and there will be a dialogue between you and moderator. I think Evgeny with the moderator, she will help us. I'm sure you are online with him, you are in contact. Evgeny, can you hear us? Just a second, some technical issues. Evgeny, have we got a chat? Can we take a look in the chat? I'm sure the audience of Business Успех, Business Success, literally, they are listening to us and they can provide us with comments. Let me have a look. I don't see any questions in chat so far, in our chat, but Evgenia, tell us, please, have we got a moderator online, or we just have a speaker only in online mode today? In other online versions, we had a moderator online, so he or she could communicate directly with the speaker. So here maybe that is the problem, because we don't have a window with the moderator. Maybe that is the problem. Karina, I can moderate myself, it's no problem. What I am looking for is questions from the audience. Let me just resolve this issue. I will try to resolve it, and I will get back to you with the feedback. So could you please wait for some while? While Karina is trying to solve our technical issue, I would like to... Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm trying to solve the issue with the organizers. I would like to say, in the meantime, I would like to remind you of what was happening back in 1998. And there were companies, or I'm sure you have good memory, that within the couple of weeks, the dollar-ruble exchange rate rose from 6 to 18, or even 20. It was a fall of Russian currency. And we had shipments in our company, and we received some shipments, but we couldn't pay for them. We were tied with import contracts, and actually the amount of debt increased 3 times. Well, with the model when we were distributors, when almost half of our competitors, they just decided not to work with us anymore. And they were referring to the exchange rate of 6 rubles per dollar, because they thought that it was purchased for that amount, and there was no chance to reassess, recalculate, and there was no chance of resolving the situation. And we actually began to actively discussing with our suppliers. There was a large company called LTP. Today, they are leaders in Eastern Europe in the fashion industry. These are the brands called Reserve, Brand House, and so on and so forth. And Crop House, we had amount $100,000, which turned to $300,000, because we were to purchase for an equivalent of $300,000 to pay back that debt. And we explained to our partners that we will either be able to pay that debt partially and completely get out of the business, or we could use some kind of model. We will be investing in the chain of our own outlets, and we will pay them with our own goods on a weekly basis. And by doing so, we promised not to pay for the current shipments in time, but also those debts which we have managed to have. And actually, the crisis which occurred in 1998, actually it changed our business model, and we have become the leaders of retail business much earlier than other of our competitors. And the experience we got during those years, in 5 years, when Mega, Ashan, IKEA, when they came to the Russian market, and other large companies which began exploring Russian market of trade real estate in classical understanding as it is. We already had experience. We worked in the centers. We were the first to open our stores and develop our business. So this ability to come to terms with our counteragents, I think it's the ability of the management to change your competences in time, and being not just distributors but also retailers. It actually brought us to the situation which helped us to develop. And in 2003, new trade centers came to be. They were open, and LTP itself, it actually entered the Russian market. And by that time, Henderson was kind of a Cinderella for them. And their plans did not include the development of Russian of male garments, product lines, and the fast fashion companies such as Zara, H&M, and a number of others, Bershva, and C&A, H&M. Actually, they were showing better result in terms of sales and return of investment. They were not going to develop they began to buy Henderson and in 2008 we opened an outlet in Tverskaya Street in Moscow, and by that time in 2008 we only had underwear and shirts, and it was a model of distribution through some individual stores. They were, in our case, in 5 years, we have designed a large number of garments, and we had the 300 square meters floor space store in Moscow, and began to. It was in the main trade street, and it still exists in Moscow. So accordingly. One more example of how in the times of crisis you shouldn't put your hands down. You should look for something who is guilty. You shouldn't look for someone to blame. Spend your time on the analysis of all reasons. You shouldn't be. You shouldn't be just criticizing somebody. You shouldn't weep. You shouldn't cry, and you should find for the ways out of the situation. And there is a very common phrase that today a problem is not a problem; it's an opportunity. So you should be ready for that. And so 2020 was a very difficult year for the companies which were founded 3 or 6 years ago, who hadn't managed to form their client base, big client base, or their competences and skills, and to have a system of. But new businesses are still open. I think it's the best time if you have ideas, if you have understanding what you want to do. There are a lot of vacant niches, and so the chances are the companies will be entering the market, and some new concepts, new strategies will appear, I'm sure, and it's something you shouldn't miss. Karina, have you got any news regarding? Well, right now, as I understand, your presentation is active again, and you may continue. Well, my task right now would be, I would rather answer the questions of the audience. Evgenia, Ruben, sorry for interrupting. I think Evgenia will update us on the issue, because she's the one who is responsible for the technical part. Evgenia, are you with us?
Well,
let's use this intermission I will fulfill one more mission of mine, and just this year, as I understand, a new book was released. It's available. It is dated 2021. It is issued now, but it's a bit ahead of time. It's called "Don't You Ever Give Up," and it's a book about anti-crisis strategies of Russian entrepreneurs. It was released by one of the organizers of the forum Business Успех, which for many years has been a leader and the inspirer of the conferences which we hold not only in big cities, but also 3,000 or even 5,000, 6,000 kilometers away from Moscow, in small towns and cities. And this national award for the entrepreneurs and businesses, it creates new projects and businesses, transforms the world to the better, and probably this book will be interesting to the entrepreneurs. There are stories about how to survive, to live through the crisis from some successful entrepreneurs like Ekonika, Teremok company, Ekonika shoemaking company, and also Daria requested me to share some of my stories and some of my ideas regarding how we could possibly be of any help for young entrepreneurs. And the competitions like Business Успех, I can say that in my life and my knowledge, they were of an absolute value, because when the company develops, when you learn on your own experience, from your own losses and failures, and when we started, one of the traits of a successful company is an ability, is a skill to admit your mistakes, to endure, to be able to resolve, and to make sure that the mistakes don't repeat. There is a famous saying, in our childhood, our parents were telling us, a smart person learns from someone else's mistakes. When we were little children, we were making a lot of mistakes, and we would say, why do we learn from someone else's mistakes? And because the life you live through, a smart person learns from his own mistake. Only geniuses, I think, can learn from someone else's mistakes. It's less than 1%. And we, the people, we have an ability, or maybe not an ability, we cannot learn from someone else's. Until you try it yourself, you don't learn a lesson. Only, I think, less than 1% of people learn from someone else's mistake. Usually we have to, less than 10%. And we go repeating again and again our mistakes. And I think what I'm saying will help you to live through the crisis, the situations which other companies had who are very successful, who are developing. An exchange of this information and energy, I think it's quite valuable. And it's a culture of business, of entrepreneurship, so that you could, by doing so, you can improve the industry. Evgeny, Karina, I can share some more cases. If you have any more information you would like to share, please go ahead. I would like to use this opportunity And the question is that I need to understand that what I'm saying is urgent and is of interest for other people. I can give an example how we manage the company. A vivid example.
A very vivid example is a client-oriented approach. When a feedback connection, that kind of connection is created between the company and the client, and the uploading of the Henderson service. It's really easy. You just need to make a purchase on a small amount of for a small amount of money in our shop, and you receive a letter on my behalf where I ask to share people's customers' experience, positive and negative experience of their purchases. So every time I get about from 10 to 15,000 replies, and this feedback helps us to stay on the ground. For example, the head of the company can also reply all the letters. So some people think that just a robot would answer those letters, or those letters would never get to the company. No, but here the head of the company, me myself, answer those questions, replies to those questions. And that's one of the values of our company, and it's really essential to build feedback system. Our company is kind of a living body. So, for example, when cancer develops in the body, it means that there are some diseased cells, and the disease starts expanding, and in the end it leads to the death of the body. And so the same works for a company. If we don't get any feedback from the market, and if we don't consider them, change and adopt them according to the expectations of our clients, we're going just to fail, thinking that we've got good figures and everything, but our clients would leave us. So in one moment, just we'll lose the trust. Clients wouldn't trust our brand, and they'll just leave us. So an example, I don't really want to say the name of that company, but its concept was a shoemaking company. So now it's broke, and they had 10 times more turnover than us, but they sold a very cheap one-time clothes, so the clients don't have to wear them for a long time. It was of bad quality, but it was really cheap, and clients could come just every month and buy something new. And in 2014, there was a crisis, and the currency rose drastically, and clients who started paying attention to their income became buying less in that company, and there were more returns of the items than purchases in that company per day. And they realized that the amount of returns was higher than the amount of purchased items, and within months the company just got broke. But even they had quite good indication, quite good figures and data, they got broke. So the customer really, it is really important for the customer that the items are eco-friendly, and so the customer doesn't really have to change their clothes very often, and all these changes that happen in the company are very important, and the company should build its strategy very carefully how it acts on the market. So the company would be able to resist that kind of situation. This strategy is good for any times when people didn't pay attention to those times, and for nowadays as well. So the times are new now, and we always should ask ourselves whether my company would be as successful as it is right now, what is changing in the world, what is changing on the market, and what kind of opportunities are changing, what channels my company has now, etc. So these are not just simple questions, these are really important questions that we always should ask ourselves literally on the daily basis. And in that book that I was talking about, it is written that I don't believe in that type of business, especially in our industry, when you can just build a business and it may work itself. It is impossible that you build business and it works itself, and you just relax and do nothing. So you always should be involved in the process of the company and change your decision and delegate the manager to make decisions, but the final decision is up to you, because otherwise, if you don't do that yourself, you would have to change those managers every year, because they might promise you a lot of money, but in the end they would just fail. So you should pay attention to that. So there was a situation when in a big company a new CEO is employed, and when all the activities are handed in to that person, and it is said, oh, don't open those envelopes with some information. Only when the director, the chief, scolds at you, you may open the first letter, for example. And when the strategies change in the company, and so about a half year goes by, and during the meeting, the chief is not happy and satisfied. The CEO opens the first letter, and it is written there, blame it on me. And CEO says, well, I'm doing my best, that's a new strategy. And all right, then 3 more months later, during that meeting, the chief is not happy again, and the second envelope is opened now, and there is one more phrase, blame it on the market and other stuff, that we need to change the team. And so six months later, CEO opens one more envelope, the third envelope, and it's written there, just change your job. So it happens when key people in the company, within the company, don't coincide the values of the company and its goals and mission. So because of that, it's the chief has to find new people. So it's really important that the basis of the company should be stable, so they wouldn't be able to attract some new people every time. There should be a stable strategy of your company that lets you expand your company. Evgeny, what is going on? Evgeny, what is going on with the questions? Yes, thank you very much for your presentation. It's really interesting and informative. So I think on this stage we can stop our session because we've got some technical issues and we can't see the questions and we can't handing them to you. If our team gets access to the questions, we will send it to you and we will be able to continue our session via email. So now on this stage we can conclude. Thank you very much. That was really informative. All right, dear friends, thank you for your attention. I'm really sorry that I wouldn't be able to answer your questions, so please send them to my email and I will try to answer them, to answer all the as I answer the questions of our customers. I will try. I promise that I will answer within 3 working days, and when I receive your questions, I will answer them completely about our current ways of developing and preserving your business. So thank you very much. We wish you good luck. Thank you. I wish all the participants in UFA and the forum and people in Bashkortostan health